The day of my son's burial finally came. However, right in the middle of it, my phone rang. I looked at it, and it was Mrs. Julie.
It's been a week, Mason. Why aren't you in school, you idiot?
I'm burying my son right now. Please. I can't argue right now.
Wow. You've grown some wings, haven't you? Let me tell you this, Mason. If you don't get your stupid ass here tomorrow, you're fired.
What?
You heard me right. Get yourself here tomorrow or forget about being a teacher.
Before I could speak, my wife took the phone from me. Hi, my name is Mason. Mrs. Julie was employed into the college in my third year of teaching the students. She had a higher position than I did, so she was my superior. On the first day, she seemed nice and calm, but on the second day, her true self came out. A pure bully, that woman. Whenever the school's president was present, she would pretend to be kind and gentle. However, once he turned his back, she became the direct opposite. I'd caught her countless times bullying the students.
Are you going to walk by without greeting me?
I said hi just now, ma'am.
No, you didn't.
Yes, I did.
Well, since you're going to argue with me, you'll be in trouble for the whole of your time in this school. Asshole.
She was a pest to both students and us teachers. She would step on us intentionally if we had our legs out unknowingly while she's walking by. She never carried her bag herself. Sometimes, she would make some of the students drive her home in her car. I'd caught her thrice. I tried to confront her the first time. This isn't right, Mrs. Juliet. You shouldn't let these students take you home.
And who the hell do you think you are to tell me what to do, you freak?
I know I'm just a junior teacher, but we're both teachers here. Stop letting them take you home and get a driver.
I see you've got the balls. Let's see you repeat this next month.
At the moment, I didn't understand what she meant by then. However, after that month ended and it got to the time when we received our pay, I understood. The school did this thing where they handed our salaries to the head teacher, who in turn pays it to us, and take our signatures of confirmation to them. Now, being the teacher with the highest position, Mrs. Julie became in charge of it. When I counted my money after she handed me my envelope, it was incomplete. This isn't my complete salary, Mrs. Julie. Why did you cut it short?
Oh, I used it to get you more balls, stupid. You wanted to teach me how to do my job, right? Well, I've learned.
I won't take this. I'm going to report to the school authorities.
Oh, please, go. I dare you to tell them. You'll get fired immediately. Try me.
I boiled with rage as she stormed off. I hated her. The other teachers consoled me and asked me not to think too much about it. I agreed. She only cut $100, and I still had $2,600 left, so I accepted to forget about it. Another day, I caught her threatening to kill the students.
If this ever gets to the college president, I'll kill y'all myself.
I couldn't help but wonder what led to that. She must have done something really bad to them. I could tell how scared they were. She proceeded to telling them stories of people she'd murdered, and even showed some pictures. I burst into the class immediately. Why are you doing this? I'm going to report you this time.
All right, Mr. Mason. I guess you want to be cut short by $300 this month. Go on. I dare you.
What is wrong with this? Mrs. Julie. I shamefully walked out of the class, sad that I hadn't been able to save them. However, I was sure she would meet her karma very soon. A month later, a young and beautiful female teacher was employed. Mrs. Julie seemed to be the happiest among us. I knew the reason was because another person had been brought in to enjoy her bullying. 2 days later, my phone rang in the middle of teaching. It was my wife. I wondered what had happened, as she never called during school hours. I excused myself and went to pick up the call outside. What's the problem, honey?
It's Jacob. He's dying. He suddenly fainted and has refused to wake up. Come back home right now.
I was confused. My son was dying. I quickly returned to the class and told the students I won't be able to continue with them. After apologizing, I ran all the way to the staff's building, grabbed my bag, and stormed out. I was going to stop by the president's office to take a permission to leave. I would go to Mrs. Julie, but that witch would never grant me permission. I reached the president's and met my worst enemy there.
What are you doing here?
My wife just called to tell me my son is dying. I have to leave right now, please. He's my only child. I can't let him die.
Oh, my only child died too. You'll be fine if he dies. Return to the class.
I was shocked. How could she say that? I felt bad to hear that she lost her only child, but how could she wish mine dead too? I can't let him die. Mr. Daniel, please let me go. Please. I was on my knees, begging the school's president. He let out a sigh and finally granted me permission. I thanked him and dashed out of the office, ignoring Mrs. Julie's loud screams daring me to leave. On getting home, I realized I was late. My son had died already. I fell on my knees, my heart shattered. It was my fault for not coming to take him early to the hospital. My wife was in heavy tears, holding his lifeless body. We took him to the morgue while we planned his funeral. He was our only child, so he deserved one. It was a tough period for me, so I couldn't call the school. However, I wrote an email to the head of the school, explaining the whole thing to him and requesting for a 2 weeks leave. It took a whole day before he responded. He expressed his condolences to my family and I, and told me I could take the leave. I was thankful for his understanding. The day of my son's burial finally came. However, right in the middle of it, my phone rang. I looked at it, and it was Mrs. Julie. I answered the call.
It's been a week, Mason. Why aren't you in school, you idiot?
I'm burying my son right now. Please. I can't argue right now.
Wow. You've grown some wings, haven't you? Let me tell you this, Mason. If you don't get your stupid ass here tomorrow, you're fired.
What?
You heard me right. Get yourself here tomorrow or forget about being a teacher.
Before I could speak, my wife took the phone from me.
What do you want, bitch? My son is dead and we're burying him right now. Can you let us be?
And who the hell are you?
I am Mason's wife. You want to fire him, right? Fine. Do whatever you want, you evil wench.
I told her about Mrs. Julie's bullying, and my wife seriously hated her. I took the phone from my wife as she began crying. Everyone present at the funeral was staring at us. It's already a sad day for us, Mrs. Julie. Please, don't worsen it.
Are you being like this because you lost a mere child? Well, I don't care. Be at the school tomorrow or you're fired.
You don't have to fire me. I quit. You can have my job as yours and continue bullying the students. I don't care. I quit.
Great. Quit, coward.
I hung up, not wanting to listen to get stupid thoughts any longer. The funeral finished, and we all left for our homes.
Idiot had seriously quit? If he comes back begging, I won't forgive him. I'm going to let him beg me in front of everyone and chase him out.
I knew I'd still get my job because I took permission from the president, but I needed to teach that Mrs. Julie a lesson. She probably didn't know that the school's president had granted me a 2 weeks leave. After the 2 weeks elapsed, I returned to school. As Mrs. Julie tried to stop me from going in, I showed her the email between the president and I, and she said shocked. I brushed her off and went in. On getting to the staff's building, I saw the young teacher on the floor, in pain. I quickly rushed to her and demanded what happened.
Mrs. Julie broke my wrist while fighting with me. She wanted my seat, but I was busy, so I refused to stand up. In anger, she began fighting me. In a bid to defend myself, she intertwined our fingers and pushed my hands back, breaking my wrist bones. Quickly, get the president here.
I quickly dashed out of the building and began running to the president's office. However, on my way, I caught Mrs. Julie fighting with a student. I continued my journey to the president's office. Immediately, I told him about what happened. He yelled out, "What? My daughter!"
Daddy.
I was shocked. She was the president's daughter. The president lifted her up. He told me he was taking her to the hospital, but I needed him to also witness Mrs. Julie bullying the students. Fortunately, he agreed and followed me. We reached the class and caught her right in the act of punishing the students. She was hitting 2 students at the same time. The president left without a word. I smiled at Mrs. Julie in a mocking way before leaving too. The next day, the president returned to the school with his daughter, her hands wrapped with heavy bandage. Mrs. Julie was in a class again. The president confronted her, and Mrs. Julie was shocked to hear that the teacher was his daughter. Shut up, Julie. You hurt my daughter. Mason and the other teachers have told me how mean you've been to them. I also caught you beating up the students. You're going to face punishment for this. Mrs. Julie tried to apologize, but it was too late. She was sued by we, the teachers, for bullying. The president's daughter sued her for physical abuse, and the students sued her for bullying, physical and emotional abuse. It was quite a lot of charges, and no one was willing to drop any. Everyone wanted her to be punished. She was sacked and asked to pay a total of $300,000. Mrs. Julie burst into tears, complaining about not having that much amount to pay. The judge told her if she didn't pay up in 6 months, she'd be imprisoned for a very long time. Mrs. Julie was fired from the school. With her entire savings, she paid $10,000 out of the fine. She went on to get a part-time cleaning job at a restaurant after getting rejected from other places. One day, I visited the restaurant and found her trying to be her authoritative self, but the young boy in charge quickly stopped her.
Shut it, old hag. If you try to change the rules here one more time, you'll get fired. You're only a part-time cleaner here. Know your place.
Immediately after, I dropped the glass of wine in my hand and pretended it was a mistake. The boy ordered Mrs. Julie to come clean up the mess. Without arguing, she walked over to my table and began cleaning it. I stood up to leave, but not before mistakenly pushing her to fall. I paid the boy and left him a tip. I find it very hard to have any sympathy for her at all. I saw it on the newspaper a few months later that Mrs. Julie was beaten up by an angry customer and she had permanent scars from the beating. Unfortunately, the guy was never caught, and no man will want to settle down with a woman with such attitude and scars. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe and leave a comment down below saying I subscribed, and we will try our best to reply to your comment.
I told y'all, but you didn't believe me. Ivy has always been like this. She lost her virginity 2 years ago. She sleeps with different guys, and Chris just happens to be the one she intentionally slept with because we were dating.
She was lying so much that I was irritated. Worst of all, they believed her. I tried to tell them I was raped, but they refused to listen and called me a liar. I was thrown into a state of shock when my parents renounced me as their child. Growing among cousins and other extended relations is cool, but it also has its disadvantages. Aunties can be quite dangerous when they get envious of you or your child, so beware of them. After my ordeal, I always reminded myself of that. Oh, I forgot to introduce myself. Hi. I'm Ivy, age 29 and married with 2 kids. My grandparents had a very huge house where they lived. Every Friday, everyone in the family was to be at the family house. We usually stayed until the next day. It was called bonding. My grandparents were very serious about bonding. They had 4 children, and all were married with kids. My cousins were all older than me, as my parents had a little trouble with childbirth before they had me. Being the youngest of all the grandchildren, my grandparents adored me. I was like their cherished puppy. Once during dinner, my second eldest cousin, who was sitting beside me, took my glass, which was nearly empty, and filled it up with juice before filling his. My aunt's daughter, Jenny, suddenly stretched hers too.
Fill up mine too, Carl.
Why should I? You have a jug beside you.
Didn't Ivy also have one beside her?
Yes, didn't she? Why can't you fill up Jenny's cup?
I was beginning to get tensed. Why were they doing that? If they continued, the dinner could get ruined. I was about to speak, but my mom beat me to it.
Okay, what's your deal with my daughter? I honestly don't understand what both your problems are. Are you crazy? How dare you? My daughter and I are now problematic. Wow, coming from you, that's so rich.
My mom was about to retaliate, but I stepped in. That's enough. We're being disrespectful to Grandma and Grandpa. Let's just eat, please. I'm sorry to everyone for being the issue. Let's eat, please.
You're not the issue, child. Do not say that. I'm glad. At least you're mature.
That passed. I finished high school and got into college. My grandparents advised my parents to let me apply at the same college my other cousins were. It was also where I'd wanted to apply, so I did, and passed. But the issue was, Jenny had always been jealous of me and was in the same school. Jenny was in her 3rd year when I got in. At college, she often acted like we never knew each other. She would walk past me and intentionally brush against my shoulder. However, I never spoke anything about it. I avoided her as much as I could. Since I was the shy type, I didn't know how to make friends. I had 3 more cousins there, so I mostly spent time with them at the cafeteria. One day, Jenny approached me. I was at the library and was surprised to see her in front of me.
I heard it. Did you think I wouldn't? Gosh, I can't believe you'd stoop so low.
I was confused. What was she on about? She had a deadly gaze on as she stared directly into my eyes. I asked what she was talking about, and she suddenly grabbed me by my hair.
You must think I'm dumb, right? I heard it all. You went behind my back to seduce Chris, didn't you?
I didn't even know who my husband was at the time. I'd heard people talking about him, but I hadn't seen him. Again, I asked her to be clear. Then she finally revealed the reason for her anger. Apparently, news was going round that Chris liked me, but the issue was Jenny had a crush on Chris. It was surprising to me, as we'd never even met each other. I tried to explain that to Jenny, but she wasn't having it. She pulled my hair tighter and warned me to stay away, or she wouldn't waste any time in making the school unbearable for me. When she left, I couldn't understand anything. Suddenly, Chris approached me. He introduced himself and told me he was in year 3. He asked if I was Ivy, and I replied that I was. Then he told me about what the rumors were saying, and how bothered he was about it. I was captivated by his handsomeness and the smart way he spoke. However, the matter at hand was more serious. Right when we were speaking and wondering how they even thought of pairing me of all people with him, Jenny rushed into the library, alongside some other girls.
So, the rumors are true? I can't believe you.
Before I could try to explain, she pounced on me. Jenny was quite big, so it was impossible for Chris to get her off me, especially with the way her friends were holding him back. By the time him and a few others around managed to separate us, I had a broken nose, lips, cuts around my eyes, on my chins and my right ear bleeding after she roughly pulled my earrings. I was immediately rushed to the school's clinic where the wounds were instantly disinfected. Our parents were summoned and my mom flared up.
What did Ivy do? Why do you hate her so much, huh?
Jenny's mother wasn't having it either. They nearly fought in the school's president's office, but were stopped. Her friends all pretended to not know about what caused the fight and only said we suddenly started fighting. Chris, however, told them that Jenny attacked first. When the CCTV was checked, they saw that it was true. While I got suspended for 3 days, Jenny got 3 weeks. It wasn't an easy period for the whole family, as everyone blamed Jenny after I told them it was about Chris. However, Jenny lied to them and said I was sleeping with Chris. Of course, no one believed her. They knew I wasn't such a person, and that clearly offended she and her mother. I returned to school after a month, and that was probably my worst mistake. 2 days after I returned, I was raped in an abandoned class. I couldn't bring myself to tell anyone about it, as I felt ashamed. I withdrew and took care of myself alone. Misfortune hit when I realized I was pregnant. I tried to hide it, but my mother's eyes couldn't be deceived for long. Once it was out that I was pregnant, the whole family, except my aunt and Jenny, were disappointed.
I told y'all, but you didn't believe me. Ivy has always been like this. She lost her virginity 2 years ago. She sleeps with different guys, and Chris just happens to be the one she intentionally slept with because we were dating.
She was lying so much that I was irritated. Worst of all, they believed her. I tried to tell them I was raped, but they refused to listen and called me a liar. I was thrown into a state of shock when my parents renounced me as their child. I begged with every strength I had in me, but they refused to listen.
You cease to be our daughter. You have embarrassed us. Get out.
My grandparents couldn't do anything. They wanted to help, but they were also disappointed and agreed with my parents. I was thrown out of their lives. With a child in me and no family to turn to, I was left stranded on the road. I walked about, not knowing where to go or what to do. That same night, Chris happened to come across me on the road, crying. He asked what happened, and I explained the whole thing to him.
No way. You don't deserve that. We have to report to the police. I'm going to go with you to your parents and let them know that nothing's going on between you and I, or even I and Jenny, or whatever her name is.
I refused. They'd thrown me out. There was nothing I could do about it. I told him I was going to get through it alone, but he refused. He blamed himself for it and invited me to his house. I got to know that he was an orphan and was working while schooling. I couldn't deny that he was doing quite well for himself. He let me stay under his roof and also fed me. Tragedy struck again when I had a miscarriage. I almost died, but Chris was there for me. He took me to the hospital and ensured I got the best treatment. I thought about my family often. I was disappointed at how easily they gave up on me. Least they could do was ask me to invite Chris over and question him, not just believe Jenny. I couldn't get over the pain and heartache their actions brought me. I managed to get a job, as I couldn't return to college or let Chris take care of me forever. He was good from the beginning. When he saw that my job as a waitress wasn't paying enough, he helped me secure a better job. We got closer with time, and of course, feelings began to develop. After 6 months of staying with him, I got myself an apartment. I was only 20 then. I worked even harder. Since I needed to finish my college education, I applied for scholarships so I could start afresh. Luckily, one clicked and I was in school again. Chris and I got into a relationship. My parents never called. They'd indeed abandoned me. I moved on and worked even harder. By the time I was in my second year in college and nearly my second year in a relationship with Chris, there was another rape case in the college. Chris told me the girl was raped after a fight with Jenny over a male student. I connected the dots, and it was similar to my case. I asked Chris if I could bring mine up again, and he promised to back me up, and it began. I returned to school and told them everything that had happened to me since the fight with Jenny. The news spread quickly. I discovered that the new victim was assaulted in the same place as me. So I requested that the CCTV footage of both days be checked. Action was put in place immediately. When they checked, it was discovered that the same guy was the culprit of both incidents. He was caught by the police and he confessed and was sent to prison. My parents heard about it and called, requesting to see me. I took Chris with me. While at my parents' house, he told them he'd never had anything going on with either Jenny or me, and he wasn't responsible for my pregnancy. My family were shocked. Jenny and her mother bowed their heads in shame. My parents and other family members apologized to me and urged me to return home, but I refused. I'd forgiven them, but I wasn't going to go back there. Just as they were still begging me, the doorbell rang. My dad and 3 police officers walked in. They revealed that they'd found out from the culprit that Jenny had paid him to commit the crimes. She was arrested on the spot. Her mother sobbed loudly and heavily as she followed them, begging the cops to not take her child. Well, I left my parents' house after assuring them that they had my forgiveness. I continued my life with Chris, working harder on our relationship, work, and school. I communicated with my parents quite regularly, but our relationship had been tainted forever, with the lack of trust they displayed at the time when I desperately needed them. After graduation, Chris and I got a house. We also got better jobs and were living well. He proposed to me, and I agreed. We were blossoming in love. Jenny's mother couldn't attend our wedding, as she was busy visiting her daughter in jail, where she was serving a 35-year jail term. We even heard from Jenny's mom that Jenny was raped by 2 guards. They were never caught or charged, and because of that, Jenny is traumatized. While in prison, she sometimes acts like she's mad. Jenny's mom is depressed and lives alone with 4 cats. As for me, 2 years after our wedding, we had our first child, a boy. When he clocked 2, his sister was born. I allowed my family to visit us at home, but I never let my kids go over to theirs. I also didn't allow a close relationship with their cousins, and Chris supported. Neither of us wanted a repetition of what happened to me, even though we knew they might not be as bad as Jenny. We just had to be careful. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe and leave a comment down below saying I subscribed, and we will try our best to reply to your comment.
Working on? Chris, you don't work on anything. What's going on? Look, I got an offer to play overseas, okay? It's my chance, Sam. My big break. I stared at him, disbelief and anger bubbling inside me. Big break? Chris, you couldn't make the starting lineup in college. What makes you think you're good enough to go overseas? Chris waved me off, like my words didn't matter. You wouldn't understand. This is my dream. I can't let it pass me by. And what about Jamie? He's your son, Chris. Your responsibility. I'll send money. Mom and Dad can take care of him for now. Let me be. That was the last conversation I had with him before he disappeared. The next morning, I woke up to chaos. My parents were in the kitchen, arguing and rifling through papers.
Samuel, have you seen my jewelry box?
No, why?
It's gone, and so is the cash we kept in the drawer.
It didn't take long to put the pieces together. Chris had cleaned us out. He took my parents' emergency savings, my rent money, and anything else he could find of value. By the time we realized what had happened, he was already on a plane.
How could he do this to us?
My mom cried. My dad was holding back his tears. I didn't know what to do. Chris left us with nothing but heartbreak and a child who didn't understand why his father wasn't there. My parents and I took turns caring for Jamie. Growing up, my brother Chris was the golden boy. Or at least, that's what he wanted everyone to believe. He had big dreams, the kind that made our parents puff their chests with pride when he talked about them at family gatherings. "I'm going to be the next big thing in basketball." He'd say things like that, gripping an imaginary ball and pretending to make a shot. "Just wait. NBA, here I come." The truth? Chris was, well, let's just say basketball wasn't exactly his calling. Sure, he was tall, taller than most of the kids at school. But coordination? Non-existent. He couldn't dribble a ball without tripping over his own feet, and his jump shot looked more like a kid flinging a rock at a tree than anything remotely professional. Still, Chris had a confidence about him that somehow convinced everyone else to believe in him. Everyone except me. I watched him blow through life like a reckless storm, leaving chaos in his wake. Chris didn't just want to be famous, he wanted shortcuts to fame. He skipped practices, lied about injuries, and sweet-talked coaches into giving him chances he didn't deserve. By the time he got to college on a partial scholarship, something that baffled me to this day, his reputation as an up-and-coming star was built on more lies than talent. That's where it all really started to fall apart. In his freshman year, Chris met Megan. Megan was the kind of person who made you wonder what she saw in Chris. She was bright, kind-hearted, and practical in a way that Chris never was. She was everything he wasn't. Responsible, hard-working, and smart. For a moment, I thought maybe she'd be the one to set him straight. Maybe she'd force him to grow up. But Chris had a way of dragging people down to his level. By the time their relationship got serious, Chris had already flunked most of his classes. He spent more time partying than studying, convinced he didn't need a degree because scouts will find me any day now. When Megan got pregnant, I thought that would finally shake some sense into him. He'd have to take responsibility, wouldn't he? I was wrong. Chris dropped out of college before the end of his sophomore year. He blamed everyone but himself. His professors, the coaches, even Megan. They don't see my potential. They're holding me back. Meanwhile, Megan stayed behind, working 2 jobs and taking summer classes to catch up. She was determined to give their baby a better future, even if Chris wasn't interested. By the time their son Jamie was born, Megan was exhausted. She'd worked herself to the bone, hoping Chris would step up. Megan didn't survive childbirth. A complication during delivery took her life, leaving baby Jamie without a mother and Chris with a responsibility he clearly wasn't ready to handle. I remember standing outside the hospital room, holding a squirming Jamie in my arms while Chris paced the hallway, running his hands through his hair. "I can't do this, Sam. I'm not ready to be a dad." I wanted to grab him by the shoulders, shake him, and scream at him to grow up, but I kept my voice steady. "Well, you better get ready. This kid didn't ask for any of this, Chris. He's your son." Chris didn't answer. He just kept pacing, mumbling to himself about how unfair life was. For a few weeks, he pretended to care. He'd hold Jamie for 5 minutes, snap a picture for social media, and then hand him back to our mom or me. He talked a big game about stepping up, but every time Jamie cried or needed a diaper change, Chris conveniently disappeared. Then came the day everything unraveled. Chris had been acting strange for a week. He avoided eye contact, mumbled vague excuses when anyone asked him questions, and spent a lot of time on his phone. One night, while I was cleaning up after dinner, I overheard him talking in the next room. "Yeah, man, I'm in. I'll be there as soon as I can. Just make sure the contract's ready." I walked into the room and asked what contract he was talking about. Chris jumped, his phone slipping from his hand. He scrambled to pick it up, avoiding my gaze. "It's nothing, just something I've been working on." "Working on?" "Chris, you don't work on anything. What's going on?" "Look, I got an offer to play overseas, okay? It's my chance, Sam. My big break." I stared at him, disbelief and anger bubbling inside me. "Big break?" "Chris, you couldn't make the starting lineup in college. What makes you think you're good enough to go overseas?" Chris waved me off, like my words didn't matter. "You wouldn't understand. This is my dream. I can't let it pass me by." "And what about Jamie?" "He's your son, Chris. Your responsibility." "I'll send money. Mom and Dad can take care of him for now. Let me be." That was the last conversation I had with him before he disappeared. The next morning, I woke up to chaos. My parents were in the kitchen, arguing and rifling through papers.
Samuel, have you seen my jewelry box?
No, why?
It's gone. And so is the cash we kept in the drawer.
It didn't take long to put the pieces together. Chris had cleaned us out. He took my parents' emergency savings, my rent money, and anything else he could find of value. By the time we realized what had happened, he was already on a plane.
How could he do this to us?
My mom cried. My dad was holding back his tears. I didn't know what to do. Chris left us with nothing but heartbreak and a child who didn't understand why his father wasn't there. My parents and I took turns caring for Jamie, struggling to make ends meet while Chris chased his delusional dreams. Months later, I tracked down the so-called team he'd joined. It wasn't a professional league. It was a group of washed-up players doing exhibition games for scraps. Chris wasn't a star. He was a joke. And yet, he never came home. He never called. He never even sent a single dollar for his son. Jamie grew up without a father, and I grew up resenting the brother I'd once admired. Chris abandoned his family, chasing a dream that was never real. And in the process, he left behind the only thing that could have given his life true meaning. But maybe that was for the best, because Jamie deserved better than Chris ever could have been. It took time, but a year after Chris left, I managed to land a stable job. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid well enough to help my parents and give Jamie a semblance of stability. Our lives slowly pieced themselves back together, and as the months turned to years, I found myself falling into the role Chris had abandoned. By the time Jamie turned 3, I officially adopted him. The process was long and draining, but there was no hesitation in my heart. He was my son now, in every way that mattered. He grew up knowing about Chris, but to Jamie, I was his father. The bond we formed was unshakable, and I couldn't have been prouder to watch him grow into a bright boy. Life moved on without Chris, and honestly, we were better for it. My job allowed me to buy a new house for my parents, Jamie and me. It wasn't a mansion, but it was ours, and it was very comfortable. For 12 years, Chris was nothing more than a distant memory, a shadow of the past we had long since left behind. And then, one day, the shadow came back. Chris returned looking nothing like the man who had strutted out of our lives with so much arrogance. He was thin, almost skeletal, with ragged clothes and sunken eyes. His hair was unkempt, and the stupid grin he used to wear was gone. Still, even in his tattered state, he clung to the pride that had always been his downfall. "Samuel, it's me." He thought I didn't recognize him, since I couldn't stop staring at him. "What do you want, Chris? You're clearly not needed in our lives anymore after what you did." "I'm not here to be in your lives. I just came to take back what's mine." It took me a second to realize he was talking about Jamie. "He's my son, Samuel. You've got no right to keep him from me." Before I could respond, Jamie walked out of the house. He was 15 now, tall and confident, with a sharp tongue he wasn't afraid to use. He looked Chris up and down, his expression filled with disgust. There was no doubt that he'd heard our conversation. "You think you can just show up after all these years and call yourself my father? I'm your dad, kid. Blood doesn't lie." "Blood? You mean the blood you left me and my mom to die for? The blood that ran when you abandoned us for a career you were too talentless to handle? You're not my dad. You're just some loser who couldn't even make it in life. Samuel is my dad. He's the one who raised me, who stayed. You? You're nothing but garbage." The words hit Chris like a slap, but instead of admitting his failure, he held his pride. "I can see they've managed to poison your heart. I'm still your father. You'll see. The law's on my side." He stormed off. It didn't take long for him to return with the police. He stood outside our house, pointing an accusing finger as the officers approached. "He kidnapped my son. That's my child in there." I laughed at him before handing the officers every document proving my legal guardianship over Jamie. The adoption papers, court orders, everything. This idiot abandoned Jamie 15 years ago. He never called to speak to him, nor did he ever send money. For 15 years, I've taken care of Jamie. My dad's not lying. This man left me. I don't want him near us. Samuel is my father. He always will be. My parents also spoke, telling the cops how Chris had run away, leaving us all in debts. The officers turned to Chris. "Mr. Chris, do you have any proof to support your claim?" Chris stammered, his bravado crumbling under their scrutiny. I don't, but he's a thief. I just want my child." You're too broke to take care of yourself, not to talk of a child. One officer shook his head. Wasting our time with baseless accusations. You should be ashamed. They dismissed the case, praising me for stepping up as Jamie's father and warning Chris not to return. But Chris wasn't finished. That night, he tried sneaking into the house. Armed with a knife, he scaled the fence, clearly intent on something sinister. But luck wasn't on his side. He slipped on the wet metal, falling hard onto the concrete below. The loud crash woke the entire household. When we rushed outside, we found Chris writhing on the ground, his ankles twisted at unnatural angles.
Oh my God, Chris.
Her shock quickly turned to disappointment as she saw the way he was dressed and a knife and ropes lying beside him. It was so clear that he came to hurt us. We called the police again, and they arrived to arrest him for attempted burglary. This is serious. You're looking at jail time. Chris tried to protest, but there was no sympathy left for him. He was sentenced to 2 years in jail, with a fine he couldn't afford. His injuries from the fall were left untreated for too long, and by the time the prison doctors got to him, it was too late. His legs had to be amputated below the knees. When he finally got out, we were long gone. My job had taken us to a different country, far from the mess Chris had brought into our lives. He was left alone, crawling through the streets, begging for scraps. No one wanted to hire a crippled ex-convict, and the pride he had once clung to was nowhere to be found. He ended up washing people's cars for a few dollars, and sometimes mow people's lawns. He tried severally reaching us, but we all blocked his number. Chris had spent his life chasing a dream that never existed, and in the end, he was left with nothing. Nothing but regret and the cold, hard truth that he'd thrown away everything that could have mattered. While in school, Jamie was so talented at soccer that a famous team signed him. A few years later, he became a superstar, earning thousands of dollars a week. He ended up buying everyone a house, and we became incredibly rich. Despite his busy schedule, traveling the world and playing for his team, he always made time to call me and his grandparents. We later heard that when Chris found out about his son and watched him play, he collapsed and went into a coma for several days. Fortunately, he didn't die. Perhaps God kept him alive to languish in regret for abandoning his son. Jamie never sent Chris a dime, nor did he ever respond to the letters and emails Chris sent him. Thanks for watching.
The next week, Jacob continued to be cruel and provided more than enough ammunition against himself.
I was thinking about giving you a very important case, but unfortunately, it would require a lawyer that was willing to stand up for their convictions.
Excuse me? Honestly, Jacob? Why do you keep saying such hurtful puns?
Oh? Did I hurt your feelings? I figured that since you are only half a person, that maybe you had thicker skin. Honestly, I figured you would have quit by now. I mean, who has ever heard of a lawyer that was in a wheelchair? You make this whole firm look pathetic. Why don't you just quit already? Why must you insist on trying to force us to treat an invalid and useless person like yourself as an equal?
Because I am an equal, Jacob. I'm a human being, damn it. And you have no right to treat me like this.
Of course I do, because I'm normal and you're just a freak. So what are you going to do about it? Complain to Human Resources?
No. I'm going to sue the pants off of you.
Ha! If you do, the firm will just protect me. It will be you versus the rest of the firm. I would like to see you try.
Hi there, my name is Gloria, and I'm 28 years old. I have been working at the same law firm for a few years now, but it's been a bit of a bumpy road. I had always known that it would be hard to prove myself to be a competent lawyer, but I had never thought that it would be as hard as it has been. It wasn't the cases, though, that have been the most challenging. It's the senior partner that I work under. I should probably explain a little, though. You see, I was born without the ability to use my legs and have been forced to use a wheelchair my whole life. Honestly, it never bothered me. After all, it's the only life I have ever known, and I never let it slow me down. I have done all the normal things most people do, like learn how to drive a car, go to prom, and have even participated in marathons as well. I may be different, but I have never used it as an excuse to hold me back from doing whatever it is that I set my mind to. However, when I joined the firm, I was assigned to work under Jacob. He was a senior partner, and when we first met, he seemed impressed with me. But that was because we met during a sit-down meeting, and as we were wrapping up the meeting, Jacob saw that I was in a wheelchair, and he made a sour expression. I knew instantly that my disability was going to be a problem with him. From that point on, he always made a point of saying things that were very inappropriate.
Hey, Gloria, can you run this paperwork down to the second floor? Oh, what am I saying? I guess I should find someone that can actually run.
Jacob, I can take that paperwork down there for you.
Oh, thank you, Gloria. You are such a team player. Having a positive attitude like that will really give you a leg up in this firm.
The way he would smile when he would say such things was always so incredibly annoying. The worst thing about it, though, was that the lead of the Human Resources Department was a very good friend of Jacob's. So even when I would file complaints against him, they would go unheard. It was incredibly infuriating, but I didn't feel like I could do anything about it. After all, I was only a junior member of the firm, and I felt that if I left the firm, that I would have nearly an impossible time finding a position in another firm. And so I decided that I just had to put up with the abuse, at least for the time being. And so for years, I had to put up with Jacob being a jerk. However, not only was he cruel with his remarks about me and my disability, but he also constantly made a point of giving more high-profile cases to other lawyers. He always picked the most mundane and silly cases for me, such as a client that wanted to sue the local meteorologist for always guessing the weather incorrectly, or the man that wanted to sue a restaurant because he didn't think their all-you-could-eat buffet had enough food in it. It felt very depressing, but thankfully I found ways to make myself happy. My favorite outlet was a local charity that helped children with disabilities to feel more comfortable and involved in the community. The volunteers would speak with the children and help them to feel less alone and more confident that they too could make something of themselves despite their disabilities. My favorite was to show the children that were in wheelchairs that they too could participate in marathons or really do the majority of the same things that most people could. I would hold races with the children, and of course I would let them win from time to time so that they felt empowered. It was at one of these events that I met Sasha. She was such a sweet girl, and like me, she had been born without the ability to use her legs. She took an instant liking to me, and we got along wonderfully. After the event was over, I was talking with her while she waited for her parents to pick her up, when a very expensive luxury car pulled up, and out of it stepped one of the founding members of the law firm that I worked at. He and his two brothers had started the law firm years before, and as it turned out, he was Sasha's father.
Hello there. My Sasha has had so many wonderful things to say about you, but you look very familiar. Don't you work for my law firm?
Yes, sir, I do. I work under Jacob.
Oh, that's a shame. That man is such a half-wit. Be honest. What do you think of him?
At first, I wanted to be coy and say that he was a pleasure to work under, but I stopped myself short and decided that this was my chance to get the truth out about him. After all, if the owner of the firm didn't do anything about his toxic behavior, then who would? Especially one that had a daughter that also had a disability. Honestly, sir, he says a lot of very inappropriate things about my disability.
He does? Why haven't you gone to Human Resources to file a formal complaint about such disgusting behavior?
I have, sir. That's the problem. Jacob is best friends with the man that runs the Human Resources Department. Every time I have filed a complaint, it just gets brushed under the rug. And as a result, Jacob just keeps making fun of me and uses my disability to give me the worst cases. Other people have been hired after me and have been promoted ahead of me because he refuses to reward me at all.
That will not do. Gloria, I promise that will make this right. Honestly, I've been looking for a reason to let that idiot go, and this gives me a great idea.
Sasha's father's idea was to record all my interactions with Jacob for the next 2 weeks, and for us to use that when he let him go. He even suggested that I should sue him for harassment and discrimination. After all, Jacob would be under the impression that the firm would have his back, but that simply would not be the case, and when he found out, it would be all the sweeter. The next week, Jacob continued to be cruel and provided more than enough ammunition against himself.
I was thinking about giving you a very important case, but unfortunately, it would require a lawyer that was willing to stand up for their convictions.
Excuse me? Honestly, Jacob? Why do you keep saying such hurtful puns?
Oh? Did I hurt your feelings? I figured that since you are only half a person, that maybe you had thicker skin. Honestly, I figured you would have quit by now. I mean, who has ever heard of a lawyer that was in a wheelchair? You make this whole firm look pathetic. Why don't you just quit already? Why must you insist on trying to force us to treat an invalid and useless person like yourself as an equal?
Because I am an equal, Jacob. I'm a human being, damn it. And you have no right to treat me like this.
Of course I do, because I'm normal and you're just a freak. So what are you going to do about it? Complain to human resources?
No, I'm going to sue the pants off of you.
Ha! If you do, the firm will just protect me. It will be you versus the rest of the firm. I would like to see you try. No, Jacob. It would be the other way around. Gloria would have the firm defending her, while it is you that would be all alone.
Sasha's father had chosen that moment to appear, and by the look on his face, it was clear that he was about to put Jacob in his place, and I was relishing the moment.
I'm saying that I've been waiting for a reason to get rid of you. You're a terrible lawyer, and the way that you have treated Gloria and the way that you have wrangled in your friend and human resources will not stand. Both of you are fired immediately. Now clean out your desk. I want you gone before the end of the day, or I will have you charged with trespassing and have you arrested on top of everything.
True to his word, both Jacob and his friend were indeed fired and were later lead out by security. In the weeks that followed, both men attempted to file wrongful dismissal claims, but once the recording of our last conversation was played in front of court, the judge dismissed their claims. The same recording was later played in court again when I sued both Jacob and his friend for the ways that they discriminated and harassed me. With the help of several lawyers, I was able to prove my case, and both men were ordered to pay me $100,000 each for the years of pain and suffering that they caused me and for the way they had held my career back. The money was wonderful, of course, and it helped me to finally buy a house. But the greater victory was finally having Jacob and his degenerate friend face consequences for the abuse that they had subjected me to. After they were fired, both men had a very hard time getting another job. No law firm wanted to hire them, and the last I heard, both were forced to get jobs working at a car dealership washing the cars. They barely made minimum wage, and the few times that I saw them, they looked very disheveled and rather sickly. Almost as if losing six-figure salaries and being forced to do manual labor nearly killed them. Also, I heard Jacob's wife filed for a divorce and wants custody of their son. I can imagine how depressed he is. As for me, Sasha's father ended up promoting me and made me a partner in the firm. I was finally able to show how good of a lawyer I was, and I was given some very high-profile cases that really helped me to prove my worth to the firm. So you could say that things have really taken a turn for the better for me. I've also started mentoring Sasha, and she plans on becoming a lawyer as well, which has made her father even more proud of her. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe and leave a comment down below saying I subscribed, and we will try our best to reply to your comment. Later, I watched what the nanny cam had recorded and saw Brenda hitting not one, but 3 different children throughout the day. This was exactly what I needed. Furious, I posted the videos to every social media site I could, and I made arrangements to take my sons to a different daycare from then on. In the morning, my posts had gone viral overnight, and the public was demanding that Brenda be placed in jail and that the daycare should be shut down. Have you ever met someone so cruel that you wondered how they could possibly be real? Like someone that vile could exist outside of a movie or book? Well, I had the misfortune of meeting just such a person, and in one of the most unlikely of places as well. It all started months ago at the daycare that I use for my children. My name is Jennifer and I have 2 sons, Stewie, who is 4, and Kyle, who is 6. I had been using the same daycare since Kyle was 3, as it was convenient for my needs. It was close to my office where I worked, and a friend of mine worked there as well. My friend's name is Bethany, and she is an absolute sweetheart. Putting my children there wasn't really something that I had to think about until Brenda started working at the daycare. The first day that I met her, I knew that she was trouble, but I had no idea just how much until later. Hi, Bethany. How are you doing today?
Hey, Jennifer. Honestly, it's been a bit of a rough day. We had someone new start, and I personally think that she might be a bad fit for the daycare.
Why? Did something happen?
Not yet, but there's just something about her that rubs me the wrong way. Shh. Here she comes.
Oh, hey there. Sorry to interrupt, but parents need to drop off their children and leave promptly. It's harder on the kids to say goodbye if parents hang around too long.
Oh, sorry about that. Is that a new rule? I was just catching up with Bethany.
Well, don't. We're here to work, not be your friend. Now say goodbye and please leave.
I very much didn't enjoy being talked to like that, and the look on Bethany's face told me that it bothered her as well. But I was in a hurry, and so I just filed it away, said goodbye to my boys, and went to work. Later that day, after I left work and picked up my boys and went home though, something very unusual happened. Hey guys, what do you want for dinner?
Pizza.
That's stupid. Stewie, don't be an ash. We should have pasta.
Excuse me? Kyle, where did you learn to talk like that? Kyle looked incredibly shocked and suddenly quite upset. I could tell that he didn't understand what he had done wrong and was confused.
Sorry, Mama. I heard the new lady at daycare saying it. She was calling a lot of the kids that. I don't know what it means.
She did? Kyle nodded his head and looked like he was about to cry, and so I brought him and his brother in for a hug to comfort them. It's okay, but that is an adult-only word. You didn't know, but now that you do, please don't use it anymore. Both boys nodded their heads that they understood, which helped make me feel a bit more comfortable about things. But that did little to stop me from being angry with Brenda. The boys had never used such language before, and I knew that they hadn't learned it from anywhere else. Bethany had told me that there was something weird about Brenda, and I was inclined to agree. I told myself that the following day I would have a word with Brenda and clear the air. The next day when I dropped off the boys, I decided to have a word with Brenda. Hey Brenda, can I have a word with you?
Ugh, can you make it quick? As I told you yesterday, parents shouldn't linger too long.
I understand that, but this will only take a minute. My son came home yesterday and used a foul language, and when I asked where he had heard it, he said that he had heard it from you.
Yeah, well, children lie all the time. That's no surprise, really.
Well, there is nowhere else that he could have learned it. I understand that sometimes that we say things when we are angry, but I just wanted you to be a bit more careful with what language you use. Otherwise, the children will pick up on it. That's all.
Well, I didn't use any bad language, so whatever your filthy child told you was a lie. Now just leave already, you cow, and let us do our jobs.
I couldn't believe how rude she was, and before I could say anything else, she turned and stormed off. Seeing this, Bethany came over and then led me outside so I could cool off. I can't believe how rude that woman is. What gives her the right to speak to me like that?
Sadly, it's because she is very good friends with the owner. She thinks that her connection to the owner makes her invincible. I have no doubt that she said some nasty things to your kids, but short of having some kind of proof, the owner won't believe you, sadly.
Maybe you're right. Later that day at work, I wrote an email addressed to the owner of the daycare detailing my interaction with Brenda and what she had said that my son repeated. Unsurprisingly, I didn't hear back from them. I figured I would give it a few days before I went down and demanded to speak to them in person. Meanwhile, though, things got so much worse. I picked up my boys after work and took them home, and while I got dinner ready, the two of them played in the living room that was adjacent to the kitchen. That way, I could keep an eye on them while I prepared something to eat. They ran around a lot and laughed and were in great spirits. After dinner, I took them upstairs to give them a bath before bed, and as I helped them get undressed, I saw bruises on Kyle's back and arms. I knew that he hadn't had them in the morning when I helped him get dressed for the day, and he hadn't bumped into anything while they played that evening, so I asked him as calmly as possible how he got the bruises. Oh. What happened there? Did you hurt yourself while playing today in daycare?
No. No, Mama.
I could tell that he was scared and he was avoiding eye contact. Oh, then what happened?
I'm not supposed to say.
What do you mean? Who told you that, and why can't you say anything?
Well, I was told if I told someone, then I would be in trouble, and that Stewie might get hurt too.
Alarm bells were roaring in my head. I knew instantly that I needed to handle this situation carefully. Kyle, I love you and Stewie very, very much, and nothing will ever change that. I want you to know that you can tell me what happened and I won't be upset with you.
Okay, it was the new lady at daycare. I was playing tag with some of the girls, and I tagged Susie a bit too hard, and she fell down and started crying. I tried to apologize, but the new lady ran over and she hit me a few times.
My rage was nearly overwhelming, but I kept my cool and told Kyle that he had done nothing wrong and that I was going to make sure that what happened never happened again. After the boys went to bed, I went and got a special nanny cam that was disguised as a teddy bear. And in the morning, I told Kyle that if the new lady hit him or any other children, that he was to make the teddy bear watch it. If he did, then the new lady would never be able to do it again. I was sick with worry when I dropped off my boys the next day. It was one of the hardest things I ever had to do, but I knew that it was my word against Brenda's and I needed evidence. And so I went off to work and did my best to try to focus on my job while I counted down the minutes until it was time to pick up my sons. When I did, I asked Kyle if he had shown the teddy bear something bad, and he said that he had, but that the new lady hadn't touched him today. Later, I watched what the nanny cam had recorded and saw Brenda hitting not one, but 3 different children throughout the day. This was exactly what I needed. Furious, I posted the videos to every social media site I could, and I made arrangements to take my sons to a different daycare from then on. In the morning, my posts had gone viral overnight, and the public was demanding that Brenda be placed in jail and that the daycare should be shut down. Sure enough, that same day, Brenda was arrested for abuse, and all of the parents that brought their children to that daycare refused to leave their children there. The owner was forced to sell the business, but that didn't stop the police from placing charges against her as well, since she was the one responsible for the children, since she was the owner. She faced charges of neglect and abuse as well, although she only ended up going to prison for a year. Brenda, on the other hand, was looking at a much worse case. Several parents came forward and accused her of hurting their children. The judge in her case had released Brenda out on bail, which was a terrible idea, as she knew that it had been my social media sites that had gotten her caught. In an attempt to get revenge, she tried to break into my home, but she hadn't counted on my security system, and as she was trying to break in, I was waiting inside my house with a baseball bat. The second she broke inside, I attacked her and broke both of her arms and several ribs. Once I knew that she was no longer a threat, I called the police and had them drag her to the hospital, where she was patched up and then hauled off back to jail. In light of her attempt to get revenge against me, the judge revoked her bail and added assault and attempted homicide to the list of her crimes. She ended up being sentenced to 25 years in prison. If you ask me, she should have gotten even more time in prison, but knowing that I hurt her like she had hurt my son, I felt that I had gotten what I had wanted from her. After that, the daycare was closed down, but a month later, it reopened as Bethany had been given a loan from the bank and because its new owner. I had always trusted her, and so I put my kids back into daycare while I was at work. After that, there were no more incidences of my boys or any other children being harmed at the daycare. And within a couple months, Bethany told me that she was making a strong profit from the business, in spite of reducing the fees she had to charge for the care she provided. Even the other staff members were much happier now that she was the owner. So I guess things ended up working out to some degree. I just hope that Brenda and I never meet again. I don't think I will be able to stop myself from hurting her even worse the next time that I see her after what she did to my son and the other children. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe and leave a comment down below saying I subscribed, and we will try our best to reply to your comment.